Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, folks. So it was a game. The Red Wings games don't tend to be this exciting usually, but I think this was a fun one. I'm Kay. We have a guest today, not from the Red Wings. I managed to kind of con him into this game and con him into coming to the Montreal podcast. This is Ty from Game Over Winnipeg. Guys, be nice. I know it's a Jake Evans game. We gotta be nice, okay? We gotta be really nice. So yeah, how are you doing, Ty?
I'm doing great. Big win for Montreal tonight. Big comeback win for the boys in red.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's hopefully everybody's in a positive mood here after the game. I already see someone commenting Mark Scheifele is still a coward, so I'm gonna bite my tongue on that one. But if we kind of continue on that path, we can talk about some stuff. So yeah, happy to do this.
Listen, guys, we can talk twice as much about Jake Evans instead. And Ty's semi promise to be nice. But I'm in charge of the stream, so if anything happens, I got your back. And I don't guarantee who I'm talking to here, the chat or Ty. So, in case you weren't watching, this was a 5-4 win over the Detroit Red Wings. 4-3, close enough. This was one of the games where the Habs, I believe for the first time, got over 30 shots for the first time this season. So that was a interesting milestone to hit. Um, what a game by Jake Evans. Let's just start there, right? Thank you, Romelli. Well, first of all, let's start by hi, everybody in the chat. I really appreciate seeing you all in here. I'm gonna, do my thing of being like, if you would like the video, I'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate I'd, I would appreciate if you subscribed. So yeah, what a game. I'm so happy that first of all, Patrik Laine did not actually kill Jake Evans, which I was afraid what happened when I just saw him go down the tunnel. Um, does that have something to do with my insane protectiveness slash hatred of Patrik Laine? Maybe, but we don't need to talk about that. Um, you know what, Ty? I'll throw you for a loop here. What's your Patrik Laine feelings? How are you feeling about his time in Detroit, if you've been keeping up with that?
Yeah, I could tell just from your Blue Sky post that you're not a big Patrick Kane fan. Obviously a first ballot Hall of Fame player, so lots of respect for what he did in Chicago. And up until this season, he's been always at least a point per game player, and I think it's this year has not gone how he or Detroit probably wants.
Mhm.
It's not just him that's not putting up the points. They have another veteran, Tarasenko, who's also not really producing anything 5-on-5. And, obviously Patrick Kane's a year older. I think he's 36 now, around there.
Yeah.
He might now be questioning, re-signing with Detroit, just of how it's gone so far and how it doesn't really look like they're on the trajectory that he initially saw, I think, coming into this year when he signed with the team. So he's definitely had his struggles, has not looked dangerous at all, aside from I guess when he's on the power play. I guess he had that nice shot today, but that was about it for Mr. Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that, like, I am still every single time he's on ice, I do still find myself, kind of, for lack of better word, clenching because 'cause I'm always like, "He's gonna do something." But it's good to see, like, that, like, Detroit in general is just kind of, where it is, which we'll talk about later. I think we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the state of rebuilds and um, what the danger is in a rebuild, I guess, or one of the dangerous outcomes of a rebuild. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about the game. Ty was not able to catch all of the game because the NHL is great and broadcasting is great, and they definitely don't black out literally everything. Um, so he was able to catch some of the goals and the highlights. Um, let's neutral ground. Patrik Laine. What every single game, I'm like, out of the games he's played so far, what, like 7, 8 games? There's been one that's been like actually that I've thought he like struggled in a way that hurt the team. He's had 5-on-5 struggles so far. He's still getting used to that speed, that game speed. Um, but even when he was struggling, I don't feel like he was really giving the team was impacting the team's chances of winning slash losing. In fact, he was helping them win by doing this thing called scoring goals, which I'm not sure if you know, Ty, but that's not something the Habs used to do a lot of. I'll point you to the Carey Price era where he'd get 1, 2, 3 if we're lucky. So yeah, we're seeing a lot out of Patrik Laine. Well, how kind of as a Winnipeg fan and also just I assume a Laine fan, how are you feeling?
I was very happy tonight when I checked to the game. It was 3-2 Detroit in the third period, and I was like, oh, uh-oh. And then the next time I checked my phone, I saw 4-3, and I was like, I wonder if Laine scored. I wonder if he converted on a par. And I saw it right there. He got the 4-3 goal, and I was like, it was on the power play. Was it from his usual one-timer spot? It was. So I was very happy. I know Montreal fans, were going. I saw crazy online another Patrik Laine goal. Yeah, I think Jets fans love it. Maybe not as much as Montreal, but we as a whole, the Winnipeg fan base is still very very happy for Patrik Laine. I think a lot of the league is too, just wanting to
Yeah.
see him do well and thrive in in the situation that he's in. And he's looking like a great, like, I think he's been a wonderful teammate so far to a lot of the guys, a lot of the young players. I think Slavkovsky, they got a bit of a bond,
Yeah.
and some of the other young guys. And I just keep it going, Patrick. Hopefully he stays healthy. Hopefully he can, be on this Montreal team, when they get good in a couple of years, when they're a playoff team, because Laine he's definitely a game breaker, and he's a guy that you need in your lineup to win, big games, big playoff games. He can score that goal off of that shot at any time, like pretty much anywhere in the offensive zone.
Mhm.
So he's the guy you need in the top six. His 5-on-5 play maybe isn't maybe as elite at the moment, but he's only played 7-8 games in the
Yeah.
last 2 years or so. So he's going to come into it. I would look for him. I'd like to see what he's doing in January, February, and into that Four Nations Cup. See what he does there. I
Yeah.
think that he's going to put up some big numbers for Montreal in the second half of the year. I have no doubt about that if he continues on this trajectory.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit I honestly didn't know much about Line 8 coming into um you know people say that the East Coast bias, but I do watch a lot of games out west. And I'm talking as in when I say I didn't know much, I mean, back when he was in the beginning stages of his career is what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I didn't quite know what to expect, even once having caught up on, who the player is, because injuries are hard. Understatement. Injuries are hard, and obviously some other struggles that he was dealing with. Um, and I think we as Habs fans have seen what strictly injuries wise, what that can do to a player, specifically with Doc. Last year, we saw Cole slow up on the goal scoring than the pace that we had hoped for because of his shoulder surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people were able to give him way more um, patience, I guess, than people have been able to show with Doc this year. And my theory with that is the Habs are expecting to win a little bit more. I think what Marty says is that they want to win more than they're losing, which for a team at this point is a fair enough target, I think. I think that makes sense. But I guess it's just a thing of, we all know how visible a player who is that big and has a role like that can be if he messes up a little bit. So I honestly think Dog had a good game. I know that Ty wasn't able to watch it, but I thought he had a good game. The one thing is the penalties. Uh, Ian, maybe it's Anne on Blue Sky, of Locked On Canadians, said that Dog has never met a stick infraction that he didn't like, and I think that's a pretty good summary of, he's third on the team in terms of penalty minutes, and that's compared to Jack Guy and Anderson, both of who have gotten major penalties because of fighting or stuff like that, and Doc has earned those in either minor penalties or one high sticking one. So there's definitely, uh, but hey, it, our penalty kill has been able to kill quite a lot of what the bad decision making that we're seeing. Ty, your team is like in a position where they like actually are going to the playoffs and actually have hopes. Kind of, what is your feeling on the
Feels nice.
importance? Yeah, I know. I know. What are your feelings on kind of the importance of special teams on on contenders? How, I know some people say that you can't really, not even rely, but you can't really hope for much out of them in the playoffs because of uh, I guess the way that the refs call playoffs. But I personally think that they're a big part of getting you there, getting to the playoffs, and then second of all, when you do get that, when you do get those opportunities, it's really important to convert. And also when you have those opportunities to kill, it's really important to kill. So Ty, what are your kind of feelings on the importance of special teams?
Yeah, and also before you're talking about, I saw Kirby Dach. Obviously, every injury is different. In his case, he maybe is taking a little bit slower to get back to his full strength. He also took a lot of time away from the game, and I think if he's taking more penalties, it's just because he's a little bit slower with the game so far, like yet. And once he gets back up to speed, I think that he's gonna kind of mature into that 2C or whatever you're kind of hoping to see out of him. I think he's got top six potential for a long time. I think is the hope in Montreal. So I'd still be positive about Kirby Dach for the most part. His game will come around probably later this year. It's just
Mm-hmm.
all injuries are different. All injuries are
Uh,
different. Laine has the shot. He can kind of come in and score. Right from his first game. And Kirby Dach doesn't have that luxury. And
yeah.
as a center, you got to play more of a two-way game. You got to be kind of everywhere around the ice.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't get too down about Doc.
Yeah.
Special teams is so important. Last year the Jets were bottom five, had like a bottom five, bottom 10 power play in the league, and that was a big detriment in the playoffs. In losing to Colorado, special teams was a big factor.
Hmm.
We weren't able to score on our power play, and then we weren't able to stop their power play. So the Jets
Hmm.
were not good on penalty kill and power play. This year, the Jets replaced their power play assistant coach, and we went. He brought on some new systems with that, and the Jets started the year not just really good in the standings, but they
Yeah.
started the year with a very unreal, like a 80% power play, 70% power play for the first little bit. I think now it's dropped to maybe 30, 35%, but it's still tops in the league or around tops in the league.
Hmm.
And just that's the difference between winning and losing a lot of games is that power play goal, that or that big penalty kill. If your penalty kills in the top 5, top 10 in the league, that can be massive. So you look at a team like Montreal, who has a lot of offensive weapons. If they can kind of build a very solid power play that's confident, that can score at a good clip. Patrik Laine is going to do, obviously wonders for that power play. But, I'm looking at guys like Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, that all can be, power play merchants. Demidov when he comes into play.
Yeah.
You look at a team like Edmonton, their power play. You look at some of these top teams. It wins you games. It wins you hockey games in the playoffs. Edmonton's power play was still clicking very well. It's obviously much tougher to score in the playoffs, just with how the games tighten up. They're a lot more closely checked. It's almost a different game than the regular season. But I think if Montreal keeps building that power play, and even their penalty kill. Obviously, a lot of teams' penalty kills need to be better. Montreal's is probably up there as well. Special teams are just so important to winning at the end of the day. It's just, it's very vital. But I think Montreal is trending in the right direction. I think the Jets have made a lot of good steps with that as well. So I'm hopeful from my end for Winnipeg, and I'm also hopeful for Montreal in the future.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is making this power play so much more dangerous than um in my memory, at least from what I can remember in my time as a fan, is the fact that we have so many weapons there, specifically Laine, obviously. But so I saw some questions, some not in the chat, but some questions in general about what Laine's production of the power play would mean for Caulfield. Because we're all hoping for a true goal scoring campaign for Caulfield this year. And he was on pace for that. But it slowed down because he's no longer the go-to for the power play. But um to me, it's a bit of a non-issue because right now Laine is getting those shots. And no matter how much teams seem to well, if you're the Buffalo Sabres, you're not even seeming to anticipate that line is going to be there for some reason. I guess it's because you're the Buffalo Sabres. That's why you're not anticipating it. But even when teams seem to kind of know, that's a spot, um, they still aren't really able to stop it. But eventually they'll find a strategy. They'll have a better shot at knowing how to stop that shot. Um, and at that point, they can then go back to not relying, but choosing Caulfield as a threat there. Um, I've personally always had not always, but near the start of the season when Laine wasn't around, I was, um, when he went to the store to buy cigarettes and get some milk and didn't come back. At that point, I was a little bit annoyed by how much Nick was passing to Cole on the power play because I thought it was so predictable. And I think at the end of the day, what that is I'm not used to having like uh, having threats on the power play, on the Habs power play at least. So I'm not used to the idea of there's the guy that they're used to, that they're relying on. So I guess that's what it kind of comes down to, is the reason why Nick passes to Cole is because Cole is the power play scorer. And eventually it'll happen. It'll happen eventually because people will figure out what the Laine kind of spot is. But Laine is gonna have to eventually figure it out on 5-on-5 on 5-on-5. Um, but I'm seeing a little bit more defense from him than I'm used to. Or that I was expecting at least. Kind of what, in your experience or your opinion, what could be Laine's strengths 5-on-5? Because right now we've only seen in Montreal his strengths on the power play.
For sure, and as you were saying, if eventually maybe teams will lock in on him a little bit more on the power play, or just know how to handle it, just because we haven't seen Laine for a couple of years, and at the same time, teams still haven't figured out Ovechkin and his goal scoring, how he does it from his spot. So it is hard to defend, but that's why the Jets had Kyle Connor, a dual threat, and that's what I see Cole Caulfield is too. It's another guy who's got an amazing shot that can put the puck in the net, and I know Cole Caulfield already has 17 goals on the year, I believe. So he's definitely a goal scorer himself. So if that time comes for Laine being maybe shut down a little bit more, I'm sure Suzuki will start getting the puck, back to Cole.
Yeah.
And then what was the other question you had asked?
I was talking a little bit, I was asking for what you think Laine does well, 5
He
on
does
5?
besides the power play.
Yes,
uh,
yes.
yeah, I would like to see him. I know when he was playing good in Winnipeg, he started being a little bit more of a power forward in that, he's got really good size. He's like 6'5" or whatever. He's a big human, and if he can, throw the body around a little bit, if he can be a little bit, have a little bit of a mean streak, instead of just kind of floating, in the O zone or the D zone when he doesn't have the puck.
Mhm.
Like when he was at his best with the Jets, he was dynamic, and you weren't worried about him being on the ice. When it wasn't going good, he was a guy that was racking up some minuses.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously not known for his defensive play. But when he really, bared down and made some strides in his game towards the end of his time in Winnipeg, actually, he was, dare I say, a bit of a two-way hockey player. So if that could be, kind of the blueprint for what he wants to get to in Montreal, because, obviously you can't just be scoring goals. I mean, you can, but, he
When you
can
got
be
a shot
somewhat
like
of
that,
that.
you really
Yeah.
could.
Yes, he could, and he's probably going to score more goals, than he has assists at this point in his career. Towards the end in Winnipeg, he was actually passing the puck a lot more, and actually scoring more assists than goals if you look at his stats. I think in the short term future here in Montreal, you're going to see him score. He's definitely going to score more goals, than his passing, just because his 5-on-5 play isn't there yet. But he's also a heck of a playmaker. He can make that good pass. He's very good at
Mhm.
finding seams. On the power play, even like he's set up Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers for a lot of goals on the power play, and even
Yeah.
5-on-5 over the years. So I just wouldn't be too worried about that. But I think if he can become, like I said, a power forward, use his size, don't be a liability on the ice. Play hard on both sides on the ice. This is a guy that's going to be, a really, really good hockey player for Montreal for years to come.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm of the opinion that I really do hope, that he sticks around. It'd be really nice to I don't know, there's something about well, I mean, first of all, the guy's just really likable. I think that's just something that's on his side is he's really easy to cheer for. Um, and also he just I don't know, man. I don't mind at this point. I genuinely don't mind a guy who might be and like you said, he was playing better defensively, but honestly, at this point, with where the Habs are at and what we're used to seeing in the production side, I don't even mind a guy who's a bit not a liability, but a guy who's, like, not necessarily, like, super strong on the defensive side. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they can always we got a guy like Suzuki who can do that. We've got some good defensemen, which we'll talk a little bit about that. I saw people in the chat asking me my opinion on the Baron thing. And we can talk more about I'll tell you guys how I feel, which I'm sure you can guess. But Ty apparently watched a lot of Carrier in Nashville, so I'll be interested in getting his thoughts on that. But before we kind of move on to that section of the show, I would like to talk a little bit about our sponsors. So we've got Into Bichu, who is a witchy, gothic, glam type of jewelry store making handcrafted art that varies from kind of subtle silver and gold pieces to more bespoke pieces. Jesus Christ. Um, so they're more than just kind of a store and a business. They have also built a community through advocacy and welcoming attitude, and they become a part of the institutions. Like in Montreal, they're located in the historic kind of section. They run seasonal themed markets. So be sure to stop by and say hi. I'm really excited for whenever I can make it to Montreal because I love that city and be able to kind of go there. So I wasn't able to get our kind of boards up with our sponsors, but I did want to tell you guys a little bit about that. We've also got Le Saint Motel, who's in a selfie studio, which is actually really, really cool. I am someone who doesn't love. Listen, I know my angles. I don't trust many other people with them. Is how I'll put that. So, really excited about that sponsor as well. They've got mobile decor setups available for rent for events as well, which they'll do setup and takedown. So be sure to head to lesaintmotel.com for more details or to check out their decor. So I'm going to move us over to our second period. And in that, we can talk a little bit about the trade. So I
You took it
saw,
well.
I took it really well. I was very normal about it.
Yeah.
No, I was sad. Because I do really like Justin Barron. I think I like him a lot more than most of this fan base did. Which if you think about it, it might be a good outcome for him not to be here because I was getting dangerously close to fighting literally everybody at all times. And I don't need help with that. I don't need more reasons for that. But as I kind of said on, Twitter and Blue Sky is putting aside how I feel personally, it's very clear that Marty did not trust Justin Barron at all. He wasn't playing him a lot, and when he was, it kind of seemed like more. At that point, it seemed like showcasing him is when he was playing him a lot more. Um, and I guess I get it, like whatever the situation is, but I think ultimately this is a move for the best because they needed more experience on that kind of side of the ice because we all know David Savard is kind of, Mike Matheson is there and he's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. He's there. That's a way of describing it. No, he's very there and important, but he's not stabilizing. He's not a stabilizing force, I would say. Um, and because of that, I think the boys kind of rely on Papa Savard, I guess, for more emotional stabilization, I guess I'll even say. We kind of saw that spiral that happened. I can't remember what game that was, guys, but it was a bad one, whichever it was, where Savard was out and everything kind of snowballed and it went very, very badly. So my point being, I think it's good to have this experience added to the team. I think it's very good to have another right-handed shot on a right-handed player on the team, especially because I need and really appreciate seeing Goalie on his natural side. I think we get a lot more out of him there. Um, just got my Goalie mention in, guys. That's a check mark. But yeah, I'll kind of before I ramble on because I do that. What is your opinion of Carrier?
Yeah, I think that the trade was definitely a clear win for Montreal. I think the trade helps both teams. I think Nashville wanted to take a little bit of a gamble on a younger, player with some upside. Barron, he definitely hasn't shown it at the NHL level. That he can play and be like a top four, for a
Mhm.
good, for obviously like a good NHL team. But Alex Carrier was, I would say, Nashville's like second best defenseman for the last five, at least after since they've traded like at Coleman stuff. After Yossi, Carrier's has been the guy in Nashville that's been looked upon the most, playing a lot of the key minutes. He's played in all situations. I think he scored up to 30 points in a season this year. Obviously, like him and the rest of Nashville, it has not exactly been an extravaganza of scoring or of getting wins or whatnot. Um, you're getting a player who's, and I think that people had said that he had a good first game tonight in Montreal, which was good. But you're getting a player that can just come in and play a top four role, kind of right away. Who's experienced, who's good, who's still relatively young, 27 maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
A player that's probably not even hasn't even hit his prime yet. Over a guy that's probably that isn't going to get to where Alex Carrier is right now in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it from both sides, but from a neutral perspective, um, someone that's seen, I guess, a lot of Alex Carrier over the years, I think he's a very good addition to Montreal's team, and he's going to be a guy now that's hopefully going to be on the team, when Montreal becomes, a playoff team in the next couple of years, that can be there, mentoring some of the younger guys. He's a guy that he's still young enough that he can, relate to some of the, the Caden Goulies, the Lane Hudsons, that can also kind of show them the ropes a little bit. On the defensive side, I know Lane Hudson's very offensive, but Alex is going to be, I think, a great teammate for some of those young guys. I know you got David Savard there. I think the Jets were even rumored to be wanting to get maybe David Savard at the deadline if he's available at
Mm-hmm.
all. I don't know if David Savard has a
It's his last
a
year of his
trade, a no trade.
contract.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if we have to always in Winnipeg, we always have to ask, does he have a no trade list? Because we're usually
Yeah.
on that, but I think that he has been rumored to Winnipeg in the past. So if he's having a decent year, I would be happy if the Jets picked him up, because he's another great veteran presence that's reliable, steady, and maybe, as you said, he's on an expiring contract. He's going to be, if he doesn't stick around, it's more of a role for Carrier, more of a role for Goulet, Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Yeah, it's a good trade for Montreal.
I think so too. I'm seeing a little chatter in the chat. So kind of to defend my my feelings on Justin Barron, I do think a lot of them are sentimental. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I followed him through, Colorado drafted him, so I've kind of been following him through that journey. So I think this is
Mhm.
one of the situations where I am hopelessly biased, and I just have to admit that. So strictly talking again from a hockey point of view, I do think that's kind of your read on that is a good one, because um Savard really, really, he came here. I can't remember exactly when he was trading, but I think he knew very well that the team was not um perhaps on the up and up. I guess it's easier for a guy to do when he's already won a cup. It's a little easier for him to be like, "It's fine for me." He wanted to come to Montreal, obviously. I heard a story, it had something to do with how his kids were starting to speak a lot of English and didn't really weren't keeping up with the French as much, and he was like, "Guys, it's time." So I love him. But I think that's something else that, it's been really, really, really encouraging to see. I think, Carrier has been really enthusiastic about coming to Montreal. So I don't speak French, so I haven't gotten, firsthand, uh, I guess I haven't been able to understand, the kind of the press conference and stuff, or, the interviews, but his eyes just, lit up in excitement. And as the chat, Trinka points out in the chat, he's very handsome, so the face card does not decline, and in that case, I will take that. If we're really talking, holistically, I guess.
Just
Yeah, Trinka says he
interested in Kale Savard. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just reading the chat. I see some funny comments from
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I think people like Savard, and he came in after the cup run, yes. And I think for any
yes.
young Quebec player, obviously to play for the Montreal Canadiens, you're going to be very happy about. It's a big, probably a big moment for, David Savard's career to come home, after playing in Columbus for so long, and the run in Tampa. He's probably, overjoyed to be playing, for his, home province team. And maybe he
Yeah.
probably doesn't want to leave either. I'm sure he wants to stay there for the rest of his career. I'm sure his kids are in, good schools and just keeping up with their French. And yeah, I'd still like to have him in Winnipeg at the deadline, maybe, but that's another story.
I think a lot of fans would also like, not for him to leave, because genuinely I've been pretty happy with his game. I know people have been of differing opinions, but to me, since he's been playing the minutes that like he actually should, which are third pairing minutes, he's been doing very well. Um, it's a reliable pairing with him and Jack Guy, who had an up and down game. Guys, I'd like your opinion on this in the chat. Kind of how you felt about Jack Guy's game, because I feel like the first period was there were some moments that were capital M moments, let's just put it that way. But then he had some really great plays later in the game. There was that one point where he just refused to give up the puck, essentially. Um, but sorry, I lost my train of thought. Ty, do you want to kind of tell me what's going on in the chat? Just a second. Just a second. Yeah. Any kind of
Over Jack,
things?
didn't he score tonight too? Didn't he have a goal, Mister? He's a very beloved. He's a very beloved. Hi, mom. Yeah, he's a very beloved Montreal Canadian of Albanian descent, which I always got to throw that in. He's the first
Yeah.
Albanian NHL player. Yeah, so I didn't really catch the game, so I don't really know how he played, but I saw he got the goal, second star of the night.
Mhm.
And yeah, people in the chat are saying, Alexander says Carrier made a comment about how he was excited to be recognized in the grocery store because in Nashville, nobody ever recognized him, which I guess is a good and bad thing. But I'm sure
Yeah.
Montreal and a lot of all the Canadian cities, you're going to get a lot more attention, than you would, outside the rink than you would if you were playing, in the Sun Belt of the
Mhm.
US or places that aren't really hockey markets, warm weather, etc. And
Yeah.
Marco says, is a second or third round pick more valuable than keeping Savard? Even if you're walking him to free agency, I would, yeah, Marco, I don't know, but I'd definitely give you a second or a third rounder for a veteran like David that's is sturdy and reliable and knows what he's
S-
doing in
See,
any defensive role.
with Savvy, I think what the I'm more comfortable letting him go with having another right-handed defenseman. But you're correct. In the locker room, he does seem like a great mentor, as Nick says. Um, so there's pros and cons there. I again love Mike Matheson. I think he brings something to this team that a lot of that a lot of the back end kind of lacks. Did you see Bernardo's proposal in the chat? Um, I
You
know
give
what
us
the
Nick
answer to that
Ehlers.
is. I
I
think
mean,
the
Nick
answer to
Ehlers is
that
not
is a
is not
solid no.
if he's going to, I mean, in theory, it'd be nice if him and Laine got reunited, but he's not going to a last place team. He'd be going somewhere that's, um, a playoff situation. I think right away he's
Hmm,
wanting to win now. In free agency, they could always trade him anywhere at the
yeah.
deadline for the rest of the year. But
But you
yeah, I don't
wouldn't,
know. I
right?
think
In a team that's trying to win, like I even if you risk losing him at free agency, I don't think I would personally trade him. How kind of what's
no,
the
no.
temperature
Unless you're
check on
getting
that?
a better player in return or getting someone like him.
Mhm.
That's has more termed his contract, I guess. But yeah, I totally think the Jets are going to keep him for the rest of the year, even if he's unsigned, and then go hard to re-sign him. And if not, then he walks, and he's the first real big guy that the Jets have let walk to UFA without getting any assets back for him, which would be
Mhm.
sad. Marco says would pass on Ehlers, not a fit for the Habs. Okay, Marco.
Mhm. I don't really I think that's a dream not worth dreaming on, frankly. I think is all I'll say there. Um, but my kind of to kind of go back a little bit on I guess the Savard situation, because I know people in the chat are asking about it a little bit more. Um, so here's the thing. I think that so I'm seeing people talk about second and thirds in return for our players. I think that this team is not looking for draft picks as much as they are for young players. I think that they are hoping not to extend because even a first would take some time to develop into a point where they'd come and be in the NHL. So I think that's kind of my thoughts on that, guys. I think this team is shifting away from looking for picks to more looking for younger players. I think, with where the kind of age group there with like Suzuki, Caulfield, like we've got our younger players, obviously, like Slav is a baby. But I think that the timing is just a little bit off with some of the picks. Um, but kind of talking about trading and picks, um, everybody again, big Jake Evans fan. What a game for his 300th game in the NHL. Honestly, the shorthanded goal being put out there in the last minute for a defensive face-off. Um, everything he did on the penalty kill beyond just the goal. I think it was an absolute sick game for him. I think this is the kind of game that also shows you why he is such a valuable piece to trade. Because I think there's a real safety that top teams are looking for near the bottom of their lineup, especially down the middle. I think Jake Evans is a very reliable center, and he is the kind of guy that coaches love. Um, Marty puts him out there basically at any time. Um, so to me, that is a very valuable piece potentially at the trade deadline. Now, honestly, I wouldn't trade him. If I were them, I wouldn't trade him because I do think that like everybody keeps saying that Owen Beck is going to replace him. It's not that I wouldn't put that bet down because young players can always, it's a good projection, but I still want some experience. We have Doc kind of still getting his bearings at sea. Nick's kind of the only set and forget there. I believe Dvorak is walking at the end of this year. Just let me know, guys. And I just like some stability there. I think there's something really important about a through line in a team. We have our big boys, obviously, who are going to be, hopefully, if nothing goes terribly wrong or terribly right, I guess, if you're getting like a really big piece back. But I guess they'll be around. But I think there is a real value in experience in your on the bottom side of your lineup. We have Galley there. Obviously, Gallagher has been a long time, not only Hab, but I feel like he's very much an kind of an iconic Hab in this kind of time. I'm not sure how many times you remember him possibly doing something illegal and getting a goal against the Jets, but that is something that a lot of fan bases remember him for. So he's been a big part of kind of this team throughout their time. But like, what are your kind of? I know this is like people get very mad about this, about the idea of culture and um how vets would help with that. So kind of how, again, from a point of view of a team that's trying to win, kind of what are your feelings on um not culture necessarily, but like the idea of experience and what that brings to a winning team, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Oh, for sure. Obviously, it helps to have some guys that have playoff experience, Stanley Cup playoff experience for teams once they're getting to that place. A team like Montreal, a team like Buffalo, the lower teams in the league, San Jose, they have the ability to play a lot of young players and to help develop them younger at the NHL level, which is a great thing. Montreal's got they have a bit of a healthy mix. I'm just looking at the line like with Josh Anderson, Dvorak, Gallagher, Armia, Matheson, Savard, and then you got a lot of players that are under the age of 25. So it looks good from that perspective of a healthy mix for a team that's trying to learn how to play at the NHL level, learn how to play a full 60 minutes at the NHL level. It's a very fast-paced game. It's a very much a pretty big learning curve.
Hmm.
And once you get down to it, let's say if Montreal is going to be a playoff team in the next 2-3 years, all these guys that you have, all these young players that you have currently, they're going to be almost experienced themselves just by playing with these guys, just by being shown the ropes, being able to play in all different situations. So I definitely feel like having you definitely cannot ice a team of all players under 25. You need guys that have kind of been around and have experienced all sorts of situations in the NHL, and I feel like Montreal has a very good is very good that way. I would definitely try to keep Jake Evans if he's a very solid fourth line center. I would, yeah, by all means. I'm seeing the chat really likes him, and Joel Armia, I'm sure that clock's ticking on him a little bit.
He's, I believe, in my opinion, that is going to be a good trade chip. Armia's really improved his game, really improved his game. Yeah, at the start of last year, he was down in the wall. It looked pretty much like over. And then he came back and was able to. There's a real I really respect him. I think there's something really respectable about a guy who was sent down at his age, and just kept his head down, and when he came back up was such an improved player. I think, again, that's also something that like really is valuable for a young team to see is, hey, like, you can't pout when you're demoted or when things don't go your way. You really do need to just move on. Just move on. It's the NHL. People aren't going to feel sorry for you. You need to just pick yourself up. So kind of for the next section of our show, I'd like to talk a little bit. You brought up Buffalo. You brought up kind of rebuilds. I'd like to talk a little bit about, why Detroit is the way it is. And by that, I mean not good. So I'm going to move on to the third period. But first, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about our Hyperdrive Hockey. So Hyperdrive Hockey is a fun news source, which gives you all the hockey stories, and it's broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. They combine top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a lot of fun. I've been on there. Max, Stephanie, and Kevin they, I believe, publish every Tuesday and Friday, I want to say. I'm not sure. So you can watch it on YouTube on the Game Over Network, or learn more about it on the gameovernetwork.com. So kind of, I know both of us wanted to talk a little bit, or by both of us, I mean, I told you that we wanted to talk about this. Kind of the Red Wings, and what the dangers are in a rebuild, like in terms of what could happen. And there's the Buffalo Sabres side of like what can go wrong in a rebuild. And then there's the Red Wings side of what can go wrong in a rebuild. And I think the Red Wings side, the Buffalo is obvious. Like, it is an obvious issue. It's pretty clear that they're just bad. But with the Red Wings, I feel like there is nobody wants to be just mid. Nobody wants to be just there, constantly almost making the playoffs, but not constantly getting like so many. I believe they have like something like two, uh, at least, at least two with Petrie. Um, they have two of the defensemen from our cup run, and they are old. So that's kind of my point of view of it, is like they're not striking the balance between of age on their roster. I understand that like Dylan Larkin has been in the league forever. It feels like, truly. But kind of what do you think about that? About like where the Wings are at?
Yeah, not good. I actually feel like Buffalo is actually, I would say, in a much better place than Detroit. Like, at least Buffalo has some really good, young players that if they figure, they make some moves, like Buffalo actually has the potential to, be decent in the next couple of years. Well, Detroit, like we say, it's like a rebuild, but like, where are their young players? Like, I'm looking at their roster, like, aside from Raymond, and Marco Casper, who's playing on the fourth line. They got one or two young defense. Like they're icing a pretty veteran heavy team. Like they went out and got Vladimir Tarasenko and Patrik Laine that are aging stars that aren't really stars anymore, who haven't done next to anything this season. They have a couple good pieces in DeBrincat, Larkin, and Lucas Raymond up front. But after that, it's very, very bleak offensively. If you just after those three, I think Andrew Kopp's their second line center, who, we had him in Winnipeg for a long time. Not a second line center, for a good NHL team, that's for sure. He's a guy that should be playing third line minutes. A guy who's not really a top six player. So I don't like. It's kind of a. I know they did more of a rebuild on the fly, I guess, in Detroit, but has not gone well. They don't have good NHL depth. Moritz Seider's a great piece on defense. Ben Sherratt serviceable.
Yeah.
It gets very bleak. They don't have goaltending. Cam Talbot, Alex Lyon is not.
Oof.
That's a bottom five tandem. I think they have a young Sebastian Cossa, 6'6", who's going to be coming up. Hopefully he's decent. Even their drafting. I'm looking at some of the recent. I guess they have Trey Augustine as well, but looking at their recent picks, they haven't been bad enough that they're getting, top 5 picks either. They picked
that's the
McDaniel.
middle. Yeah, that's the middle. That's the big issue.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. Yeah, you'd want to be like, Montreal. If you want to be bad, you got to be like, Buffalo bad, Columbus bad, Montreal bad. That you're getting these top 5 picks that you can, stock the cup boards with these, good prospects, but. Montreal has not picked. They picked 4 when they got Lucas Raymond in 2020. That was a big hit, But other than that, they're not even drafting super well, unfortunately. And some of the guys they picked, don't really project to be, top of the lineup players, which is pretty unfortunate, and it's making for a very frustrated, Detroit fan base. So for like I said, I think even Buffalo is in a better place, and certainly Montreal's in a better place when it comes to this rebuild. So I think for Montreal fans, it's definitely a sign of relief that things could be a lot worse. In a rebuild, because it doesn't always go according to plan. You can stay stuck in that mushy middle for eternity almost if you don't find a way out of it. Montreal's doing it the right way. They're going to be bad this year. They're going to get another top 5, top 6 pick. And then I think starting even as early as next year, they could be a team that's at least pushing for the playoffs. And then the year after that, I definitely see them, getting back in the playoff push, especially if these young players become what, where they're kind of projected to be if they continue on that trajectory. In Detroit, they can't even ice, rookies. They can't even ice players under 25. It seems like, which is too bad for them, but not our problem at the end of the day. I'm not a big Detroit Red Wings fan. Never have been.
Yeah. From the Avs side, like I'm like, well, screw those guys, honestly. And also I believe it's either Cop or JT Compher, who's their second line center, who is also not a second line center. He's not that. But first of all, J Money, I see you in there, buddy. I'm keeping an eye on you. Again, as I always say on Twitter to you, trolling used to be believable. So I'm just gonna say that. But to me, kind of Detroit has also had bad drafting luck, as Marco says in the chat, which is true. Or sorry, draft lottery luck, which is also true. To me, it's just I feel like the Habs have had enough good luck. I think first of all with getting Slav getting that pick. I think in a really unexpected year. We really weren't expecting to be that bad that year. But it kicked off the rebuild and Mark Bergevin is gone, so I guess that's that. But I think with Demidov falling as far as he did, also we now have somewhat confirmation that Michkov actually did not want to go anywhere else but Philadelphia. So people who are getting really every single time, every single game. I'm so tired. Guys, we don't need to keep talking about this. It's happened. They
Why'd
didn't
you
pick
take
him.
Meshkov at 5? What was that about? Why'd you take that Austrian defenseman? I'm kidding.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Um, which I'm also excited to see what Ryan Bucker does when he's hungry. When he's ready. I'm hungry, guys. That's what's happening. Uh, so, guys, be sure to drop any questions you have in the chat. But while I am here, I guess my big thing with the Red Wings is that I don't think they committed. I don't think they ever really committed one way or another. Um, I don't think they ever fully embraced being like really, really bad long enough for it to matter. Um, and then I think signing like a guy like Kane was just not a good idea. I know they were trying to get over the hump, but it was pretty clear at that point they did not have the pieces. Um, so I think it's also a lack of self-assessment, which is part of like why I'm so glad that we have a tandem in Gorton and Hughes, because I think those having two guys in that kind of position helps balance out the kind of brain trust. You know what I mean? There's no obviously there's a power dynamic. There always is in the workplace. It is what it is. But I feel like having those two minds kind of together is better than perhaps having one guy driving the bus the entire time. Um, so just really quickly, I want to touch on this. Believe I saw some people earlier in the chat talking a bit about Montembeault and how much he's been playing. I believe this is his 8th start in a row that he's gotten because nobody trusts Primo. And I mean, Montembeault and Hellbeck are obviously not comparable at all, but I know Hellbeck plays a lot. Like he plays a lot of games, and I believe, like I think I asked you this in one of your shows, but I know you kind of said that you're not all that concerned about how much Hellbeck plays. I mean, he is elite, so I get it, but you know, I feel like with a goaltender like Monty, who's uh good? Question mark. No, he's good. He's good. He's just a little inconsistent. Um,
Mhm.
but he's also, if you look at like the amount of starts, I believe it's like Hellebuck is up there, and then it's like one or two like big guys, and then it's Monty. Um, so in a weird way, that's good for a rebuilding team because it means that whenever Primo's in net, it's almost a guaranteed loss. But Primo's not in net, so I guess kind of how are you feeling about the idea of I'll let you riff off that. I don't know what my question is here.
Okay. I'm surprised, yeah, when you said that Montembeault started 8 games in a row. That's especially for like a team like Montreal that's not trying to lose, but it's probably better if you guys lose more than you win, just for as we talked about with Detroit. Um, yeah, it's too bad that Caden Primo's not NHL caliber, because it would be nice, if Montreal had a second goalie that you're kind of comfortable playing 20 games a year. I think I've heard some people say that call up Dobes. I think he's a Czech goalie, Jakob Dobbs from the AHL or whatever. I think you have that good Jacob Fowler prospect that I was talking about. I
Mhm.
think he's going to be a goalie in the next couple of years that could tandem with Montembeault and maybe even be the starter from him at some point. Um, so while I think it's imperative to have that backup goalie that can play, it's I guess not as important for Montreal at this moment to go out and acquire that piece, just because it's in a season where you're gunning for a top 5 pick. Um, it's not the end of the world. I just think that I think that Montembeault, you don't want to, I guess, overwork him. I know he doesn't have to worry about playing in the playoffs, but it's you don't want injuries to come in from
Yeah.
overplaying. I think just I'd play him 55 to 60 games and let
Mhm.
Primo or whoever else play as well. I've liked a lot what I've seen from Montembeault these last couple of years. He's becoming a top 15 starter in the league. He's projecting to be, hopefully, I know goalies, they're good one year and bad the next year,
Yeah.
but he's trending to be a pretty solid goaltender. So I think that
Mm.
Montreal and the organization wants to do probably whatever it can to get whatever it takes for him to be playing, his best in a couple of years' time with the team, and whatever gets him to on that trajectory. Goalies obviously develop in different kinds of ways. Yeah, it'd be nice if Primo was a little bit better. But I think it is what it is, at least for this season. Then maybe in the off season you can go out and correct that. I'm seeing the chats being funny here. J Money, is that the guy that was giving you a hard time on Twitter today?
The J Money is a Flyers fan. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
No, to me, it's like Marty literally is not confirming if Monty's playing tomorrow or like Primo's playing tomorrow. So like to me,
It's a
that is
back-to-back.
Monty's playing tomorrow. Like is essentially is what it is. Um, and it's the injury thing that concerns me. Over the last few years, you've seen like every single year, Monty has gotten better and better, which is always nice to see in a goalie. Goalies are like obviously not they're magic pretty much, but the first year Monty was here, the tank year, the accidental tank year, he had a wrist injury, and it was very clear that it was just like that's part of why he was bad. And then he's
Mhm.
just been getting better. So I really like Monty. I think listen, I want to I I get like not wanting to put yourself in the strongest of strongest positions to win with where the Habs are. But at the same time, I think that like these guys melt down when they're playing in front of Primo because they don't trust him one bit. And there's a real psychological aspect, I think, with goalies. That's something that you used to hear a lot about Carey Price is you'd feel secure. That was one of the reasons why guys liked playing in front of him so much is you didn't necessarily have to worry as much. Um, so, that's just this is a conversation we've had so many times on this show about like what do you do for backup? I think you just have to make something work. I really like that Kent Hughes saw a problem on the right side of the defense and he just did something about it. He made something work, which I'm hoping he's also keeping an eye on the goalies. Although the goalie market is just absolute ass right now, so I get it. But if anybody has any questions in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Outreach says Arbor Jack guy. We talked a little bit about him, but Arbor Jack guy, man. I thought he was really bad in the first, and then he got better and better, and then obviously he got that goal, which I'll never complain about. Um, I
Mhm.
guess I'm not sure if anybody asked, but I'll tell you guys, I did not like Hudson and Matheson together today. Um, they enable each other's worst tendencies. Hudson had his like, I'd say second of the season, like actually bad game. Um, there were some not good decision making. But in that last goal specifically, I believe I can't remember who the last goal was. It wasn't the Kane one. It was the one after. He absolutely lost his man. Like he lost his man 100%. But what happened is that Matheson could have helped him. He could have done a little bit more, but Matheson isn't built that way. He is a very, very good defenseman who gives us a lot, like, that is so important to, like, the movement from the back end. But he isn't steady defensively. He's also a left-handed defenseman playing with another left-handed defenseman. Um, I I caught a little bit of I just don't like it. I don't like seeing two left-handed defensemen play together, especially a guy like Matheson who's already isn't uh let's just say he isn't like his strength isn't his defense. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yes.
Um I know you've suffered through some defensemen playing on their wrong side. I believe there's at least one that I heard you talk about. So we see that happen and I'm to me. But my problem is I really feel like Gooley and Hudson play well together, even though they're both left-handed, and you put Gooley on the right because you're not messing with Hudson. Obviously, that's the piece that you keep um, where he's used to, especially with his size. You don't want to put him in a position where doesn't know where he is on the ice in a weird way.
Mhm.
But so that would be my kind of preferred way of Hudson and Gooley, but I really liked Gooley and Carrier too. I feel like they did really well. They were one of the pairings that, like, in the first one or two periods, I didn't notice them, which frankly, for two defensemen who are defensively inclined, not a bad situation. You know what I mean? If you aren't noticing two defensive defensemen, oh, okay. Uh, that generally is a good thing. And then in this third kind of period, you saw more of Carrier feeling comfortable. Gooley got offensively involved. So I liked that pairing. I just don't know what to do going forward because you have two defensive. I don't know why I keep going with that phrasing. You have Gooley and Carrier, both defensively minded. You have Hudson and Matheson, both offensively minded. But it's just there's a weird puzzle piece to try to work out there. I honestly, before this season, before 2 seasons ago, I didn't really have many opinions on. I saw that I'd see that, like, there's some coaches moving towards non-handedness defensive kind of position where they're
Mhm.
not really paying attention to that. But to me, that's just not, especially for young defensemen, it just seems like a putting them in a position to fail when you're asking them to do something that they're really not used to. Um, it- what are your kind of thoughts on, like, this concept of asking guys to play on their wrong side and seeing how it kind of works? Do you think it can be done well? I guess I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's obviously depends on the player. It's every person's different in how they play on their offside, how they're utilized. I don't really like how the Jets are playing. They're young Ville Heinola, young Finnish defenseman who we're trying to see what we have in him. Especially when the guy on the left side's Logan Stanley. So I'm not going to get too much into that. I think Montreal obviously has the log jam. Yeah, you're right with the two, offensive, left-handed demon. I think that I've seen in the chat as well. The obvious solution is Mike Matheson is very expendable.
Yeah.
He's especially when you already have you have Lane Hudson, who's looking like a potential top defenseman in the league for. He's going to run the power play for a very long time.
Yeah.
Mike Matheson's 30 right now, and is not going to say his best hockey's behind him, but it's definitely a bit of a gamble how much longer he has before he starts to decline and at least a little bit, at least lose a step, and that's really all it takes in this league. So
Yeah.
Matheson definitely has a lot of value right now. And he's a guy that I could see Montreal trading to a contender, whether that's at the deadline or whatnot, to a team that needs a top, one or two offensive defensemen on their team. He's shown he can, run a power play. He's done that in Montreal for, until Lane Hudson, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of value still to be had there. And I'm kind of curious to see what Montreal could get for Matheson, whether that's at the deadline or in the off season. Especially, I know you have a couple of young defensemen that are still
Mhm.
waiting to come up. Logan Mailloux, and there's another one too.
Engstrom,
Drawing up.
and then we have
Yeah,
one guy in the KHL, but obviously Reinbacher whenever he's healthy. We'll
Reinbacher. There
see
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
such a lot. You already have like six, and there's Jack Guy too. There's Carrier. Like you already like you have these guys like Matheson's. It's obvious he's going to be the one that's going to be the next to get traded on the defense for sure. So I think just waiting to see get him while his value's high, get the most you can get for him at the deadline, whether that's someone right-handed defense, whether that's doesn't have to be a defenseman, it could be a a forward, it could be a prospect, a pick, a first round pick or whatever. Um, it's a really good trade chip, and it's probably the best trade chip that Montreal is going to play, I think, at around the deadline.
Yeah, I think that, like, I'd say maybe next year would be Matheson's time. Um, he still he still plays so many minutes for this team, and whenever he's been out, it's been a real disaster. Now, is that because they're not used to playing without him? Like, it's a little bit of like, yeah, he's so important, but also, are they just is their system just prioritizing him, which makes sense if he's a reliable defender with experience, with like insane fitness, who can play so much. It makes sense that they rely on him, but it's like I said, I think that's a next year possibility. Um,
Mhm.
I think right now we're looking at the deadline. It's Evans, Savard, Armia, and if anybody will pay anything, hopefully Christian Dvorak. Um, but
Stinks.
come on,
No,
you don't want him on the
so
Jets.
bad.
You
No,
don't
it's
want
a
him.
for a deadline piece. If his contract's expiring, not it won't. I better not be the Jets. He's not. He just I liked him and like 5 years ago. I thought he was had some potential like in Arizona, and I don't know what the hell happened to that guy.
They asked him to
Just
do Philip Deneau's job, is what happened, and Philip Deneau is a much
no
better
Philip Deneau.
center. Yeah, he's no Philip
Yeah,
Deneau.
he's got a unless he has like a Sean Monahan resurgence in him. I think that he's going to be out of the league by the end of next season. I'm sure he gets one more contract from some team, but woof, yeah.
Yeah, Wolf is right. Wolf is right indeed, especially with that contract. Bernardo has a great idea in the chat. How do you feel about that? Bernardo's
Send
saying
them,
Dvorak for Logan Stanley. How about that?
send them both. Like, send them to both to Russia or shoot them to the moon. I don't. Yeah, they both need to be out of the league. To be fair, Dvorak is doing okay this year, says Ramelli though. So, and
I
you gave
mean,
up a first and a second for Dvorak.
that
Jesus
was
Christ.
That was Mark Bergevin's panic move. It was, oh, I let Philip Deneau walk. I have to give somebody else something. Then he was like, oh, you know who can replace Philip Deneau? Uh, Dvorak, apparently. Trigga says he won a face-off today, which is fun and good, and exciting. Yeah, we love a defenseman who can, or a center who can occasionally win face-offs. I swear
That's
on
true.
our
I've heard.
team, I swear it's literally just Evans and sometimes Suzuki who can win a face-off. It's I might be retconning Dvorak right now, but I don't care. I can be mean to him. It's fine. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna give you guys like maybe like I I've kept Ty for a lot longer than I wanted to, or not wanting to than I promised him. But if anybody has any more questions, just we're happy. I'm happy to answer. And if Ty wants off the stream, to message me, I guess. Now I'm putting him on the spot. But yeah, so to me, it's just uh Dvorak is a guy. He's a spot holder right now. Um,
Mhm.
to me, that's the obvious kind of movement that happens of Evans perhaps moving over to the third line, which he did well in because it was Gallagher, Evans, and Anderson, I think. Which Josh Anderson also won a face-off today, so good for him. Um, so I think Evans can work on the third, and then maybe Owen Beck comes up and is on the fourth. There's options. We have options, and we thank you so much, Kristen Dvorak, for your service, and won't miss you. Uh, I'm sure Cole Caulfield will miss him. They're very close, apparently. But unless Cole can suddenly transform him into something he isn't, it's fine. Um, how did I manage to come out of this like basically burying Christian Dvorak? I didn't need to do that near the end of this show. I didn't. It just happened, guys. It just happened. Now he's our Anderson. Yeah, Bernardo asks you a question, Ty. Apart from Kale Savar, what is the Jets' biggest need?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that Kale Savard is Savard is our biggest need. I would say like we definitely are gonna probably pull the trigger on one, if not two defensemen. I would think preferably a right-handed defenseman, which I guess Savard is right-handed, so I guess that's a
Yes.
possibility, or he plays on the right. I'm eyeing like a
Where in the
Ryan
lineup or the depth chart would that be needed? In terms of pairings?
Well, so in Savard's case, he'd probably be playing on the third pair. Like if it was
Yeah.
if we wanted a third line player, we have Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, and then we have a mixture of Colin Miller, Logan Stanley, Billy Hainola, Hayden Fleury that all kind of play on that third pairing. So
Mhm.
someone that's solid that can play every night. It doesn't have to be worrying about like we're not looking for like a 6-7 defenseman. I'd rather have like a 4 or 5 defenseman, which I see like in possibly Savard,
Mhm.
possibly in some other guys. I think the Jets could also use like just an actual top 4 defenseman, like a Ryan Pulock from the Islanders, who is from Manitoba, has a connection. I see him as a potential piece if the Islanders start to fade more. We also need more. You always need more forward help. Another top 6 player, ideally.
Mhm.
Haven't really loved what I've seen from Cole Perfetti in his time so far with the Jets.
Mhm.
I would actually like if they traded him while his value's high, but he's a young player that's been loyal to the team so far, so I don't see them trading him. But just top 6 help.
Yeah.
Last year, the Jets went out and got Monahan from Montreal, gave up a first-round pick, and then they also traded for Tyler Toffoli, which both players didn't really work out here. I think we wanted to keep Monahan. Thankful we didn't, just for the money that he's making in Columbus. But
Mhm. I think he
deadline
wanted
moves
to
need to
go
work.
anyways. Yeah. Yeah.
He wanted to play with Johnny Gaudreau in Columbus
Yeah.
too, and then
Yeah.
that was very
Yeah.
Bernardo asked, "Is Sandberg a legit top
Just
4 D
really
man?"
quickly, before you answer, Bernardo, I'd like to ask, why does Cole Perfetti look like an evil version of Cole Caulfield? What's up with that? What are your
Yeah, he
thoughts
kind
on
of looks like
evil Cole?
yes, a little munchkin. Yeah, he's I wish
Oh,
he was a
I know you
better.
have feelings
I wish he
about
was a
him.
good hockey
Yeah.
player. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just he's got the two he's got the two biggest flaws an NHL top 6 forward can have, and that he's slow and that he's soft,
Mm,
which is hard to overcome. He's the Jets' slowest player. He's not a goal
really?
scorer. Like he's a playmaker. He's a passer. He doesn't like in the playoffs last year. He played all season long, and then as soon as game 1 hit, he was a scratch because he's not
Yeah.
a. The playoffs are a different animal. He's not going to get it. He's not going to play very physical. He can't really play in those environments. And he's played with some extremely talented players. He's always played with Nikolai Ehlers or Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele, and he's still not, producing the way that he should be. And you can just see it with the way he plays. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to dish. We don't have to dish Cole Perfetti to your team, but I don't know if things don't turn around. I'd be happy to trade him. And yes, he does look like a little munchkin.
Evil Cole Caulfield,
Bernardo
actually. Yes, Bernardo asked you about I'll let him ask us.
Sandberg. Yeah. Bernardo says, "Is Sandberg legit top 4 D man?" Um, Going into the season, I maybe would have said I don't know. He started the year really, really well, and it's like, okay, yeah, he is, and it's even more amplified now that he got injured. He got hurt, and I was kind of like, oh, whatever. It's not really going to change, the Jets' results, and it kind of has because he's a big hole that's missing in the Jets lineup right now. We've kind of had to
Mhm.
put Hayden Fleury in a top 4 role, and then we've had to roll this stupid Logan Stanley, Billy Hainola pairing on and off for the last
Which I know
10
you
games or
love.
so. Yeah, I don't love that. Um, so Sandberg, I think, is supposed to resume skating right after Christmas. We'd love to get him back in the lineup, ASAP, because he definitely is a legit top 4 defenseman for a potential contender in the Jets. So he
Mhm.
would, yeah, pause off Montreal.
What is he left-handed or what?
He's left-handed, yeah. So he plays
Okay, then
behind
we're
Josh
good.
Morrissey,
We're
left-handed.
good.
Yeah, yeah. He's defensive. He's a very defensive, sturdy, 6'4", good size. Doesn't bring the offense, but I
Mhm.
guess Montreal's got a lot of offensive. Rinka says we don't need more small and soft allegations. No, you definitely do not.
But that's the thing, we aren't, guys, we aren't. Somebody tell the league, put it in the newspaper, we're not soft or small. It's just because Nick Suzuki isn't like 6'5" is why people think we're it's just he's like built a little bit like Crosby, where he's just thick, right? Like he's just strong on the puck, and he's not the tallest guy, but yeah. Okay, I've kept Ty long enough, and I've kept you guys long enough. But what a game. Really great. I believe I can't remember who it was, sorry guys, but someone said that it's hilarious that Jake Evans could not score on an empty net, wide open net, but he could score a banger, which is the Jake Evans way. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you could like the video and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. And I believe it's Mark who you will see tomorrow. And go Habs go. Ty, where can people find you?
I'm on Blue Sky as well under my name, Ty Dilello, talking about the Jets or whatever's going on in the hockey world, I guess. I think a lot of our Game Over hosts have kind of migrated over there from Twitter. I'm seeing, which is it's just a cool new app without kind of all the BS of that Twitter has. So yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky, reading about the Jets.
Yeah, I'll put that information down in the description box. Check him out on Game Over Winnipeg. Um, don't be too mean in the chat. Uh, no, Winnipeg is a really interesting team to me. I'll be honest, like they're not. Um, I've found myself like hating most of the Canadian teams just because like I have to. I've realized it. I know the person I am, which is a hater. But Winnipeg's an interesting one. I'll put it that way. They went up against the Avs last year, so I couldn't cheer for them, frankly. But they're an interesting team. I think I always hate to see a great goalie wasted. So that's kind of the thing that like I'd like to see, that I'm interested in seeing if they can make something happen there. Just because I don't know. I always get Carey Price feelings every time I see some poor goalie maybe not making it the way they could. Um, but it is what it is. Helbeck is a healthier goalie than I think Price was. So that's a good one. And I'm
Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed, knock on wood. Would not wish that. That was not a dig. Yeah, so we're going to sign off now. You can find my information in the description box. You can find Ty's information in the description box. And I hope everybody has a lovely night. And this is Game Over. I'm gonna go eat, guys. Bye.
See everybody. Bye.